Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Joshua Barnes, coming to you live from the Firstpost studios. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Silver rises to a record high $75 an ounce, while gold remains above $4,500 an ounce. Asian markets trade on a higher note as precious metals extend their year-long rally. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he will soon meet US President Donald Trump as part of peace efforts to end the war with Russia, adding that a lot can be decided before the new year. The meeting would follow the latest round of peace talks in Florida. Separatists in southern Yemen accuse Saudi Arabia of targeting their forces with airstrikes. The attack comes after the kingdom warned them to withdraw from the 2 governorates they recently took over. Fresh clashes erupt near Uvira in eastern DR Congo between the M23 rebels and pro-government militia. The Rwanda-backed group had seized the strategic city near the border with Burundi earlier this month. And Japan approves a record $782 billion budget for the upcoming fiscal year. The government allocates more than $58 billion to the defense sector to boost its capabilities amid what it calls a complex security environment. Hello and welcome. Our top story today is from Nigeria, where the US has conducted strikes on Islamic State targets. President Donald Trump announced Thursday's strikes in a Truth Social post, describing them as powerful and deadly. Last month, Trump said that Washington was ready for military action to counter the killings of Christians. And on Christmas Day, the US acted on its warning.
I have previously warned these terrorists that if they did not stop the slaughtering of Christians, there would be hell to pay, and tonight, there was. May God bless our military, and Merry Christmas to all, including the dead terrorists, of which there will be many more if their slaughter of Christians continues.
Later, the Pentagon released a video on social media that showed missiles being launched from a naval vessel. The US Africa Command said multiple ISIS terrorists were killed in an attack in the Sokoto state, and that the strikes were conducted at Nigeria's request. US Secretary of War Pete Hegseth also thanked the Nigerian government for its support after the strikes. The Nigerian Foreign Ministry confirmed the US strikes, describing them as precision hits on terrorist targets in the northwestern parts of the country. The Nigerian government said that they were cooperating with the US on security. After the Christmas Day strikes, Nigeria hinted at further attacks on terror targets in the country. Nigeria's foreign minister also said it had given Washington intelligence on the terrorists. The minister said he was on call with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio ahead of the aerial bombardment. This is the first such attack by US forces under Donald Trump. In the last few months, Trump has singled out Nigeria, claiming that Christians face an alleged existential threat that amounted to genocide. He also warned against any systematic assaults on Christians in the country. Back in October, the Trump administration put Nigeria on the list of countries of particular concern, citing violation of religious freedom. Trump also threatened to stop all aid to Nigeria if it continued to allow the killing of Christians.
They're killing record numbers of Christians in Nigeria. And they have other countries very bad also. You know that part of the world, very bad. They're killing the Christians and killing them in very large numbers. We're not going to allow that to happen.
And before the US struck ISIS targets in Nigeria, President Tinubu had posted a Christmas message on X in which he vowed to protect the religious freedom of Nigerians. Now, Nigeria is almost evenly divided between a Muslim majority north and a largely Christian south. Authorities have said that armed groups target both of these communities. Earlier this week, an explosion ripped through a crowded mosque in Borno, killing at least 5 people. Police suspect it to be a suicide bombing attack. Suicide bombers are frequently used by Boko Haram to spread terror. Nigeria's security situation is worrisome. President Tinubu has been under fire for not being able to counter the armed groups and terrorists. It remains to be seen how the direct involvement of US forces under US President Donald Trump helps to solve Nigeria's security woes. And joining us to dissect this further is Confidence Makary, a geopolitics analyst joining us live from Lagos, Nigeria. Welcome to Firstpost Africa. Welcome to Firstpost Africa, Confidence. Let's start off by looking at the US, who said these strikes were carried out at Nigeria's request. Do you think that is the case, given Trump's recent comments? After 4 years of military rule, Guinea is heading to the polls on Sunday. But the Junta leader, who once promised not to run, is now on the ballot. And critics say his victory is all but guaranteed. That was the scene this week in the capital, Conakry. Large crowds had gathered for the final campaign rally of military leader Mamadi Doumbouya. Supporters danced, waved placards and chanted his name. Doumbouya is the former Special Forces commander who led the 2021 coup to remove President Alpha Conde. And now he is asking voters to make him the president, seeking a 7-year term.
Ce ne sera pas une élection ordinaire.
This will not be an ordinary election. It is a referendum on the future of our country. On December 28th, let us vote for stability, for peace, for sovereignty, for continuity, for dignity, by choosing General Mamadi Doumbouya.
Under Doumbouya's leadership, Guinea has reportedly enjoyed relative stability, unlike its neighbouring Sahel states dealing with terrorism and corruption. And this is what Doumbouya's campaign has been focused on, bringing stability to the nation. The junta leader backed infrastructure developments and economic reform, a rewrite of mining laws, and the long-delayed launch of the Simandu iron ore project, one of the largest in the world. Authorities say the project could transform the country's economy and create thousands of jobs. And for some voters, that argument resonates.
I'm here to support Mamadi Doumbouya because of his kindness, for the job opportunity he gave to people who need it, and for the effort he did for us, for the population. So we are here to support him as the president of our country.
Doumbouya had promised a short transition back to civilian rule after his coup, and promised not to run. But that changed earlier this year. A new constitution was approved in September referendums. The new laws dropped a ban on junta members contesting elections and extended the presidential term to 7 years from 5. The referendum was passed amid an opposition boycott. But there's more to this. On paper, there are 8 other candidates running against Doumbouya. But Guinea's most popular opposition figure are missing from the ballot. Former Prime Minister Cellou Dalein Diallo is in exile, facing corruption charges that he denies. Former President Alpha Conde was barred from running under a new age limit. And that's why critics say the outcome is largely predetermined.
Let's not kid ourselves. There can be no other opponent who can challenge him, especially since his major rivals have been sidelined. After the elections, the president needs to take a step back and realize that he now has to exercise power.
And the only other opposition candidate who seems to be drawing crowds is former Education Minister Abdoulaye Yerobaldi. He wrapped up his campaign in Conakry this week, calling the vote a turning point. Analysts say his reach remains limited. However, his supporters believe he could bring credible change.
He is the candidate I supported among all the candidates this year. Abdoulaye Yerobaldi is capable and well-trained, and Guineans trust him.
And rights groups have raised concerns over the broader political environment in Guinea, where several opposition figures have been reportedly arrested or forced into exile, and demonstrations have been banned. Amnesty International has warned of what it calls a climate of fear. The junta denies these accusations. Guinea sits on the world's largest bauxite reserves, yet more than half of its population faces poverty and food insecurity, according to the World Food Programme. Amid those economic challenges, around 6.7 million voters are already registered for Sunday's vote, and results are expected within just 48 hours. The vote is being closely watched across West Africa. This, as at least 10 countries in the region have seen military takeovers since 2020. Now, it remains to be seen whether Guinea's transition will deliver a civilian rule or remain under military leadership. Our next story is from Tanzania, where a mountain rescue on Kilimanjaro ended with a deadly helicopter tragedy. The crash happened at an altitude of around 4,700 meters on one of the mountain's most popular tourist climbing routes. Police say that the helicopter was carrying out a rescue mission to pick up patients on the mountain. While the ascent of Kilimanjaro is not considered technically difficult, altitude sickness is an issue for many climbers. According to the Tanzanian national parks, on board the helicopter when it crashed were 2 Czech tourists who had been picked up in the medical evacuation, a doctor and tour guide, both of whom were Tanzanian, while the pilot of the helicopter was a Zimbabwean national. Officials confirmed there were no survivors. The African nation's aviation authority said the cause of the crash is not yet known, but that investigations have started in line with international safety regulations. The aircraft belongs to the Kilimanjaro Aviation Company, who are yet to comment on the accident. Now, aircraft crashes on Mount Kilimanjaro are rare. It's estimated that around 50,000 tourists climb the mountain each and every year. The last recorded air incident was in November 2008, when 4 Italian tourists died. However, in June, the European Union put all Tanzanian air transport companies on their at-risk list. The European Union has also banned all carriers certified to Tanzania from operating within EU airspace.
We strongly urge Air Tanzania to take swift and decisive action to address these safety issues. I have offered the Commission's assistance to the Tanzanian authorities in enhancing Air Tanzania's safety performance and achieving full compliance with international aviation standards.
On November the 6th, 2022, a domestic passenger flight crash led to multiple fatalities. A Tanzanian Precision Air Company aircraft crashed into Lake Victoria, following the pilot's attempt to land at Bukoba Airport. Of the 43 passengers and crew on board, 19 people died. And in 1999, 10 American tourists were among 12 people who died after a Northern Air Cessna plane crashed into a mountain slope in northern Tanzania. This incident once again places the global spotlight on air safety in Tanzania. As investigations continue, families in Africa and Europe wait for answers as to how this rescue mission ended in a tragedy. And for our final story, let's turn our attention to the cost of living crisis in Africa. 2025 is about to end. New Year's cheer is in the air, but high living expenses continue to burn a hole in the pockets of some Africans. A new report from the world's largest cost of living database has revealed the names of 10 African cities with the highest cost of living. 4 of them are in South Africa, 2 from Morocco, and 1 each from Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, Namibia, and Ghana. Let's take a closer look at the data delivered by Numbeo on a points-based system. First comes Addis Ababa. It is the capital of Ethiopia. The cost of living is ranked at 43 points. At the second spot is Pretoria, the capital of South Africa, where the cost of living here is more than 41 points. Another South African city grappling with a high cost of living is Johannesburg. It is the economic capital of the country and got 3rd spot on the list. The cost of living here stands at a little over 40 points. 4th on the list is another South African city, this time Cape Town. It is the legislative capital of South Africa. The city is famous for its beautiful beaches and attracts tourists from all across the world. At the 5th position is Harare. It is the capital of Zimbabwe. Next in the rankings, Windhoek, capital of Namibia. The country of about 3 million people has one of the highest official unemployment levels in the world. At 7th place is Accra. It is the capital of Ghana. The West African country is emerging from its deepest economic crisis in a generation, with turmoil in the vital cocoa and gold industries. In 8th position comes Casablanca. It is Morocco's biggest city by population. The 9th spot is also taken by a Moroccan city, that being Rabat. It is the capital of the country. And at 10th spot is another South African city, Durban. It is the busiest port city in South Africa. Reasons for rising inflation vary from each country and region. In North Africa, Morocco saw massive Gen Z protests in September and October. The youth took to the streets to protest against the dire state of education and the public health sector. Moroccans called out their government over lavish spending on global sporting events while neglecting the needs of their own people. Moving on to South Africa. It is the continent's biggest economy, but it is difficult for South Africans to find jobs. Though the country's unemployment rate fell slightly in the third quarter of this year, growth still remains sluggish. When prices for food, transportation, energy and housing all shoot up, people scramble to make ends meet. When incomes fall and fail to keep with the rising daily expenses, people are compelled to reduce spending on nutrition, healthcare, education and savings. Financial suffering not only reduces the quality of life, but also erodes the trust people invest in their leaders and governments. That's all we have on the show for today. We will see you again on Monday at the same time. Until then, thank you for watching.